To replace the green hair, is that?
Yeah, we're live.
Hey,
We are live. Right on. Dig it. 619 OTA. It is a holiday. You can do this from your peak. July 4th. Happy birthday, America.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
happy Independence.
Our Independence Day. Yeah, that's right. It's a big deal. We got what were former enemies and now friends on this call, so that's good.
Uh,
Neil's got a new light setup. He's just showing us his lightsaber, so ready to wade into Skywalker and Vader's thing. So dig it. Let's see. Man, I don't even know how to pronounce that. Tomasz Horvath. Validator's update 12.0 about. We can talk about validators, but first, as Kai Risdal says, let's do the numbers. Dave, what happened with Helium in the last week?
Okay, so we've talked about how stable the network has been over the last month or so. Neil's smiling. He knows what's coming. There was a chain var update last week that was supposed to increase the POC rate by reducing the number of invalid receipts that we were getting. I think it was around 170 per block rather than 250. So there was a chain var that fixed that and also fixed the H3 DEX issue. However, what we've seen since then is that the numbers have dropped. So the number of hotspots that are participating in beaconing has dropped, I think, to 164,000 yesterday from around 190,000 last week. So things have dropped quite significantly despite there being this chain var update. And I guess because it's been the weekend and Independence Day, nothing will get done till tomorrow to have a look at it. Cokes did say that it may take a few days to settle down, as these things always do, but it does look like a bit of a trend downwards, which is not ideal. And certainly, with my own hotspots, I have seen some odd behaviour. I've been getting sort of 0.1 HNT for a witness, for example. So something somewhere is not quite right.
And what do you usually see for that, Dave?
0.01. So things have. I mean, 0.1 is the network average, and to receive that for a witness, a single witness, is quite crazy. It's just indicative that the network's in flux still, and some people aren't participating in an epoch, and therefore rewards for that epoch are slightly higher, or greatly higher.
10x higher, yeah.
Yeah. So the network over the last week has been a little bit unstable. H&T minted has been down a little bit as well. However, I submitted a report yesterday to the foundation based on the whole of June, and I was actually pleasantly surprised to see how stable it was over the month of June. And how close the rewards distribution particularly was to pre-light hotspots. So looking at the number of hotspots that earned in the entire distribution across from 0 to 2 HNT, looking at how the rewards were distributed, the curves look remarkably similar, which is encouraging because it means that mechanism for adjusting the rewards based on active hotspots is working well. We just need more active hotspots. Again, interestingly, I looked. Fortunately, the ETLs all came back online because one of the side effects of this chain var was all the ETLs died last week. So there's been some frantic work over the weekend by Spillair, who's traveling the world
in Paris with a giant. Jesus, have you guys seen those pictures? Neil, that guy's like twice as big as you.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So he's been fixing the ETL. So I ran some numbers yesterday, looking at. Rather than looking on the daily basis, looking at how many hotspots participated, I think it was 13 days I was able to look over, and it kind of tops out around 600,000 hotspots for both witnesses and beaconers. So people are participating in POC, just not as regularly as they would hope. It still leaves around 280,000 hotspots doing nothing. again, it's something that just needs to be looked into and addressed, because for me, that's an unacceptable number.
Sure.
One of the
Yeah,
other
that's a
things
lot
that
of
I looked
hotspots
at,
that aren't doing it, and there's nothing you can do, right? You can't power cycle them. You can't go in there and. I mean, Neil, you're shaking your head. Dave, you're shaking your head. I'm on
yeah,
a little chat with a couple DIYs. We're kind of wondering what's going on.
yeah. I mean, some of them may be long-term dead, switched off a long time ago, and that's okay. But I suspect that there's a lot of them that just simply aren't working, or are on Neil's shelf in the background.
Potentially.
I've only got a few. These
Yeah,
aren't all onboarded, but yeah, it's a bit of a mess at the moment. I mean, there's some cases where like hotspots are spending all day beaconing and not witnessing, and there was also they found that H3Dex is targeting denialist hotspots. So
right.
they shouldn't be targeting them at all. They should all be removed. Things like this that are all going to increase the numbers and make it a bit better for everyone. But right now it's stable but low, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and one of the things I also looked at was validators. So I think there's 3,660 active validators. So those are the validators that currently have a status of staked. So I would expect all of those to be participating in creating challenges. But we're around 3,300 per day. So there's a couple of hundred validators that aren't challenging. And again, if you look at that over a 13-day period, it goes up to about 3,500. So there's still 160 validators around the world that are doing Jack. Which again is not an ideal situation, especially
Right.
for those people that are connected to those validators. I know they swap around, but something needs to be done to make sure that all of the validators are working, because that they serve a much more important role in the system now.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I think a lot of the validators are suffering from finding that their validators are just going relayed out of the blue. So there's some config settings you can pass in to force it to use an IP address rather than go relayed. And what
Right.
they're finding is if they hadn't have set those values, then they're finding that their validator would just go relayed out of the blue. So they're all
Mm.
having to go back in now and set these hard coded values to make sure it's using it correctly. So there's that flux period of like there's a lot of validators to catch up to do that by the
Yeah.
looks of it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm.
I mean,
Go ahead, Dave.
yeah, it's only a small percentage, but it makes a difference. So ideally, we need all the validators working. Um,
We'd like everything working. That's kind of where we're going.
well, yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
I'm seeing. Let's see. Let's do the comments for a little bit. Felizardo Carneiro. In Portuguese, I'm going to take a stab at this. Is that you're asking when Binance is going to stop suspending HNT withdrawals? I have no idea. I'm not sure the first part of that sentence. Sorry, M.
I can
Manotenkao.
take a guess at it if you want.
Go for it. Yeah,
I think I can understand where the chain vars went through. It paused a lot of ETLs and nodes. So Binance and other exchanges have all gone down for maintenance because they need to repair their internal ETLs or nodes to get
got it.
them to follow transactions again. So whilst like transactions would have gone through, it's just that they can't read them that they've come through.
Okay, and so kind of the answer is, as almost always, is patience.
Yeah. Mhm.
Dig it. I'm seeing a new name on here, Volhashi. What a cool name. Yeah, nothing crazy there. Seems like everything else. And then I'm seeing a couple of these validator questions. Do you guys know? I haven't paid attention to this release or if they did it with or without an announcement. You guys got any updates?
It
on
was
that?
with announcement. Yeah, from what I understand, it's with announcements, and there's also another site you can go to as a validator to sign up for SMS announcements and
Okay.
email announcements, so you can follow along and you'll get an announcement exactly when it happens. But no release ever goes out without an announcement. Sometimes they post a release onto the site, but they don't intend for people to use them. It's like more for the canary builds to try them,
Right.
and then they'll announce them. So just be careful you're not just skipping ahead of version than what's been announced.
Okay, so just pay attention, and that'll be in. I'm not sure if the Helium Discord has a specific validators announcements. I'm guessing it does.
Yeah, yeah, they do. Yeah.
Cool. Bracktran, when can we have Vosk on here? He was coming on last week, and then he got pulled away from some. He was, I don't know, inspecting the solar panels on his Bitcoin mining farm, and so now we're going back and forth on email. I think eventually he'll come on here, and we can, see why he's saying what he's saying. I think it's pretty interesting. Let's see. Binance support looking into the problem. Eric Jonas, good to see you. Gabor Kiss is we got some interesting names on here. This This is new. We got Gabor and Vol. I like it. Um, as 5G is USA only, can we expect in the EU the same rewards we got in the past few weeks? I mean, 5G, as far as I know, hasn't gone live yet. I haven't looked at the announcement, so there
Nah, it's
shouldn't
all
be any
beta.
difference.
Yeah.
And I think, God, what? Sometime in early July, there's going to be something coming down with 5G. I forget what it is. If we're gonna launch the mobile token or something like that. And when that happens, then you can expect to see a slight drop. But until there's 5G usage, and by slight, it's like, I don't know, less than a percentage. Or 1 percentage point is my guess. I don't think you're going to see anything big because 5G can't get used. You can't roam onto the 5G network. So the only thing you'll be able to do on Helium 5G is put an eSIM or SIM card in your phone, and then you're kind of locked into that one network that is more or less, for right now, useless, except in really small places.
The big one to remember with 5G is all about the protocol score as well. You know, Laura has 850,000 hotspots versus what, like 3,000, 4,000 5G gateways. So it would be a very long time before it would even touch our earnings.
Got it. Oh, there's Eric. Okay, Eric. Now I'm connecting you with the Twitter and Discord handles. You just joined the Gristle crew and this RDOF, the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund. So I think Travis had sent a link to me last week. It looks like there are government grants available, and it just looks like this. I've only briefly read it for deploying 5G units. So it's kind of an interesting thing for the folks in the U.S. to look up these grants and then figure out, hey, can I provide coverage somewhere? And then maybe, and I would expect it to be a giant pain in the ass. You can get government funding for that, but I wouldn't expect that to be easy or anything. So, Patrick, does anyone know why rewards are always lower at weekends and midweek? Dave, you want to take that one? Why are they always lower?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that that's something that I've noticed, that it's particularly bad at weekends, unless, of course, they drop a change on a Friday, which which disrupts everything, and then it takes time for that to filter through. It's exactly what we're seeing at the moment, that rewards are down a little bit, and the number of hotspots participating is down a little bit, but that's simply because there was a chain VAR done on the 30th, which was Thursday. So that will be why this weekend was down a little bit, but previously the whole month it's been pretty stable. I've not seen anything that suggests that weekends are any different from weekdays.
Have you done an analysis on kind of daily earnings? Like, do you earn the most on Mondays or Tuesdays or Wednesdays? Because you certainly must have access to at least query that.
I can query that. I'll have a look at that after the call, and I'll drop a link to see if anything changes.
Cool. Yeah,
But
I mean,
I'll,
one of the
see if
days has got to be the best day. So, but it won't make
Yeah.
any difference. I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of this stuff, folks who are watching, is that there's really nothing you can do. The whole system was designed so that you didn't have to do anything. It was designed so that your grandmother could plug it in and it would work. And that's nice if you're the grandmother. It's less nice if you're kind of halfway tech savvy and you want to do something. There's really not much you can do.
Again, one thing to note on that is that you can't really look at it on a daily basis at the moment, because beacons are once every 4 days.
Yep.
Looking at it on a daily basis, while it's interesting, you need to sort of take a step back to look at individual hotspots. You need to take a step back and look at them over a longer period. With what I'm doing, looking at 800,000 or 600,000 active hotspots,
Yep.
looking at daily is okay because you've got a large sample, but looking at one over 1 day, it's not going to give you a great deal of insight.
Just going to be frustrating. I saw that, and Vol is saying this in the chat, or Vol, however you say it. Sorry, mate. That the lone wolf hotspots, or at least the hotspots that are out in kind of rural areas, I don't think the lone wolves had any change, but the hotspots out in rural areas are supposed to have started to get a little bit more. I haven't noticed that with mine in a rural area, but it's also like on a mountain seeing thousands, so I don't think it is what Helium was talking about.
No,
I'm definitely seeing some benefit from my rural hotspots compared to my my workhorse hotspots that have always worked well. I'm starting to see the ones that are out in the sticks a little bit more, pick up more witnessing, pick up more beaconing events.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very strange. It's like, one thing I notice is that beacons seem to come in pairs right now. For whatever reason, they seem to come a few hours apart. and then they might not be seen for a few more days, and then 2 again. So there's
Mm.
something definitely wrong with targeting, because I'm getting targeted so often close together, and
Yeah.
then a very spread out period of time. But that it's definitely picked up in the rural areas for me. One thing we were talking about earlier is it's important to realise that rural hotspots aren't meant to beacon more than city centre hotspots, dense area hotspots. They're meant to be beacon evenly.
Right.
So it shouldn't be that rural will beacon more than a city centre, and they'll beacon less. It's just that they should evenly beacon about the same amount of time. So
Mm.
if it feels like rural is up but the city centres are down, then that means that there's likely a problem.
Yeah. So it's not, as Neil says, it's not that they'll beacon more. It's they'll beacon more than they did last week. And you've got to remember as well that if you're in a small cluster, it's not just you that will beacon more frequently. Those around you will beacon more frequently, and you'll benefit from witnessing more frequently.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
Well, that's the plan. What I've seen is some of mine that are in less dense areas. I'm witnessing beacons, but there's only 5 or 6 total witnesses for that beacon, where it used to be consistently 14. So again, something a little bit odd is going on, but it's nice because for those 6 witnesses, people are getting rewarded quite highly. So
Yeah, it's like kind of going back in time when less hotspots were on the network
yeah,
is one way to think about it. I'm seeing, let's see, I got these names are awesome. Leopold Butters Stotch and Ilko Radulov have the same general question, which is about this Weather XM install and or partner projects. And I think if we start looking forward and kind of get some perspective on where Helium is as a network, it is just beginning to be used, and barely being used at all. And so I got this Weather XM station in, I don't know, last week. I think I put it up on my roof. Super cool to see the weather. Couple little things about it, just like any new project that I'd like to see changed. But Weather XM recently announced that they're going to come out with another station that is going to function solely on the Helium network. So the one that I got, it's a little bit confusing, but from the station down to which is up on my roof, down to the miner in the house, it communicates over LoRa. And then from the miner in my house to my house network, it communicates over Wi-Fi. And what apparently is going to happen with the Weather XM units is it will just be a station. There'll be no miner. The miner will be part of it. And it will communicate to the Weather XM network over Helium. And right now, I mean, the last I looked, there's 400 and some odd weather stations on the network. They're blasting data every 3 minutes. I think we can expect to see that go up to a couple thousand stations in the next month or two, maybe more. But
I'm on the wait list.
All right, yeah, right. Yeah, me too. I got right back on the wait list for the Helium station because that wasn't available when I bought it. But the cool thing is that is the first. I guess Neil, yours is the first project I saw where it was like a physical thing you could buy, right? So you're the winner there. But we're starting to see these things pop up, right? Where there are businesses being built that are using Helium in the background, where no one, like, you don't have to know anything about Helium to use this other project. And that's going to start to push more and more data through the network. And that's the data through the network is what is going to make Helium valuable in the long run.
yeah.
And so I think that stuff is getting exciting.
Yeah, so one of the parts of the analysis that I did over the last month was looking how many data packets had been transferred throughout the month, and what we needed to get to get to that elusive burn to mint ratio.
Yep.
And the number of sensors that we've got on the network currently, we need to multiply that by about 25,000 to reach a point where the network becomes self-sufficient without POC. So I don't know how many sensors are on the network now, but certainly to scale that by 25,000 times is a big ask. So that's just a note to everybody that there is a lot of work to be done to build out this sensor network, and the Weather XM thing is really cool. But there are plenty of other opportunities that people can look at for doing similar things. You can do traffic monitoring, anything like that, where you just need a simple piece of data sending saying that 14 cars passed here in the last 3 hours, like your pedestrian, or not pedestrian, people counters, and having these sensors in lots of locations provides this big data that makes things really easy to analyze for local government, local councils, anything like that, to just look how things are working. So even having a sort of a weather station in everybody's back garden, you can look at how the weather is working on a micro level. So it's really exciting that you can do all these things. It just needs people to go out and build it.
Yeah, but we're seeing, I mean, Neil, we're seeing you are making it easy for people to track stuff. They don't need to know anything about helium, right? They could
No,
consume.
exactly. Exactly,
Yeah.
and services like WeatherXM are just going to enable high accuracy local data. I always remember there's a Weather Underground do a similar sort of thing, but you pay 1,500 quid for a weather station. You then pay 500 quid for a license a year, and then you can access the hyper local information. So that information is worth so much money if you can predict properly to so many businesses that it really puts a use case into putting crypto behind it and then using Helium as a network. So it sounds like a really, really interesting global, program that we can help with. And I hope to see clean air being the same thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Weather, clean air, traffic, things like that. All of it can be done on this network, and I think it'd be crazy to see it.
yeah.
I mean, it's just about making those use cases.
It's super
You
super
know,
cool to see. And look, apparently, Robert Van Vandel a note. I'm going to get to your question in a second, but apparently, Neil, you saved someone's life with TrackPack 619 OTA. I don't know if found where he was lost or not. So, good job. Give yourself a little red cross. Um,
Oh,
does Drone Deck still work over the network, Robert? I don't know. I haven't looked at it lately. I'm imagining it does, but I haven't checked it out. I'd check on their site and just ping them with a contact. So, and then
yeah.
Alonso Leon. So there's I see your question here. Can I measure cars and their speed that go by my street? I live on a really fast street. It would be nice to have hard data to take to the city. 100% yes, you can do that. There's a bunch of different sensors out there. And what I'm seeing now and kind of how I'm thinking is that we're going to see like two splitting arenas of data usage. One will be folks who are just like, hey, I've got something in front of my house or in my yard or in my property where it's a pretty small piece and you're just using Helium because that's a reasonable thing to use. And then the other thing are businesses like Neil's or like WeatherXM, where it's an actual business and they're using Helium kind of in the background to do something else. And the one way, like as an individual, Alonso, it's going to be a pain in the butt to do that unless you're a little bit of a geek. You can do it, and it'll be probably cheaper than anything else unless you could find a Wi-Fi people counter or a car counter. But it won't be the easiest thing yet. And so what is exciting to see is over the next year, we're probably going to see a ton of projects come on that are going to use Helium in the background, that are going to start to really crank data usage up. And that's where the whole thing gets exciting. And until we get to that, I think we're going to see a lot of kind of complaining on Twitter and Discord and the rest of it, where it's like, hey, we built this network. How come we're not getting paid? It's like, well, because you didn't really pay attention when you bought the miner. That's why. That's not the nice way to say it, but that's sometimes what I think.
Some truths, isn't it? Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, if you take the active miners on the network and you divide it out, 55k HNT, divided by all those number of hotspots, it works out to like 0.11. So even if we beaconed 4 times a day, we're not suddenly gonna jump up to 1 HNT a day. That's never ever gonna happen. I mean, you'll get more consistent earnings around the average, but you're not going to get these fancy days back when we used to have 1 a day or 20 a day or 100 a day at points. It's always gone down, and to really recoup your investments, you need to start thinking about sensors and data.
Yeah.
Just getting those use cases out there, and we all do. And I think Dave had a stat the other day that I looked at, and it was something like there's 360 wallets with one hotspot on it. So that's a hell
360,000.
of 360,000 wallets with one hotspot on it. So that's at least 360,000 people on this network. So if we all work together to grow sensors and use sensors and show our friends that, show our businesses that, we can really make something of this. But if we're constantly focused on pocket earnings, we're going to go nowhere and we'll be dead in a year or two. We have to change that focus.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, this is something I've been thinking about and talking with another fellow I've met through Discord is building a course on really how to understand these blockchain and meat space projects. Is that the initial piece when we all come in is like, oh my God, in this case, the POC earnings or whatever the thing is, whether it's WeatherXM or GeoNet or Planet Watch or whatever, it's like, oh, I'm getting free, money for free from the sky, which is like, okay, that's a cool way to get in. But it also sets up a project long-term for kind of the toxicity that we're seeing in the in the in the group of folks who don't know how the system works. And I don't know anyone who understands how the system works who's upset about it, right? I don't know anyone who's read the white paper, who kind of went through and like, okay, I get all this stuff, who's upset about it. I know a lot of people who are super pissed about helium, but they don't understand what's going on. And I have yet to find, when they do understand it, that they remain ticked off. Maybe there's one exception. Who's been coming after me at Discord, or was coming after me at Discord last week. But outside of that, it's really a question of education. And then to Neil's point is like, how do you use it? And in the use of it, then it becomes valuable again.
I'll refer back to your video a couple of weeks back where we had the guy on, and I can't remember his name, and you were talking, this is an investment, not income.
Oh yeah.
So investments take effort. You can't just invest and expect things to just happen.
Yep.
You've got to, put investment into growing sensor usage in your area and using sensors, or joining part of the conversation. One of the big things we always talk about is there's not enough people here helping out with HIPs, helping out with the foundation work, looking into the future code. We just need people for everything. People always moan that Helium don't do enough publicity. Well, you can come help and be part of that. Maybe that's your day job. You can come in and help with that and, provide solutions. And that's just what we need more of.
Yeah. I'd like to see Helium Foundation do more publicity, but maybe they won't. I think my guess is with them is that their view is like, hey, this is supposed to be a decentralized network, and so we'll do the short-term pain of not bringing in like kind of a publicity firm and wait for a publicity firm to kind of figure out there's an opportunity here and do that and figure out how they're going to capitalize on it. And that's certainly kind of one of the things that I think about constantly is like, how do I take the learning side and make it a profitable business? But pretty interesting to see the approach here, because it's very different than any other business that most people have seen before.
Yeah, people walk in and expect Apple, if there's a problem, they expect them to fix it and deal with it. And we just can't deal with things like that in a decentralized matter,
Yeah.
At the end of the day, a lot of people don't like this saying, but it is the people's network. The people are building it, the people are growing it, the people are using it. And, those people just can be part of the solution rather than wire POC earnings low all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. And Siegfried B and 619 are talking about. 619's upset at Rack not having a dashboard. I think.
Still.
Yeah. They can announce the 5G hotspot, but they can't build a dashboard.
It's odd. What do you think is going on there?
I think they're waiting until the full miner's gone to make a much easier dashboard.
Okay. So just a strategic decision is your guess.
My guess. That's an absolute guess. So yeah.
Let's see. Gabor Kiss. How come data packets always got 2,000 participating hotspots? I don't understand that. We even found offline hotspots participating in data transfer. Dave, does that make any sense to you?
I've not looked at whether offline hotspots are transferring. You've got to remember though that the announcement that you've made a transfer doesn't come immediately, so it can be an hour or 2 hours. I think as we spoke with Paul a few weeks ago, for the state channels to close.
Yep,
so
right.
It could be that the hotspot is offline at the point that the transfer is paid for, but it was online when the transfer was done, because obviously it can't transfer anything when it's off. That would make no sense.
And data only don't do any POC as well, so they're classed as offline. So they're always offline. So it might be a data only.
Dude, I've got this data only hotspot. It's an LPS 8. I gave it to Dirk Beer, and it's still in my wallet. I can't get rid of it. I was like going to transfer it to him, and it's like offline. It's not working. And when I gave it to him, he reset it, and it came up with a new name. And I think it's just, actually, I'm sure it's just my total ignorance of how the whole thing works that's explaining that. But it's a pretty odd thing to think as we go forward, like we're all going to have kind of new problems to figure out and solve. So yeah, do you guys have data only hotspots? Have you played with them, worked with them?
No.
Yeah, I've used them. I've got a SenseCap M2 data only. That's quite nice to use. It's nice having a very low powered machine that doesn't need to do much. It just works.
Yep.
it's pretty much your experience from your DIY, Nick. Without having to set up the cloud miner.
Right.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah. I got one I was super excited about. I brought it up to Ohio for that paragliding race to track it, and then I think it was off forever, and then I turned it on and it just didn't work, and I was like, God, here you go. And Dirk got it to work for him, and it's working, but it's an interesting thing. It's gonna be catching up on the chat. Robert, see you later. What else is in there? So Justin Gatchik, setting realistic expectations for earnings up front is key to keep people happy in terms of reward. Yeah, 100%, dude. 100%, Justin. I think I would like to see on every blockchain and meat space project, whether it's Helium or GeoNet or whatever, WeatherXM, Demo, Mapmetrics, is that every manufacturer, like every place you can buy a unit, has three forms of education. It's got it in an audio form, it's got it in a written form like a blog post. So it's got like a podcast, a blog post, and a video that explains like, hey, here's the expectations that you should have when buying this unit. And here's what's going to happen over the long term. And I think you could explain every project in like 10 minutes or less. And then when people come in, they're like, okay, I'm going to buy this thing for $500. I'm going to be on a 10-month wait list. And when I get it, the network will probably have grown to this amount. And so this is the amount of tokens I can get. And the understanding is that nobody knows what the token price is going to be, but then you can make much better decisions, based on accurate information.
Yeah, I think we've suffered a lot because of there's been a lot of unknowns. So people bought them 12 months ago when there were like 20,000, 30,000 hotspots on the network, not anticipating that it would be 12 months before they got the hotspot and there'd be 880,000 hotspots. At the end of the day, it is really just simple maths. If you look at an even distribution, there's 50,000 HNT available per day for miners, and there's 880,000 hotspots. Okay, at the moment, only 600,000 of them are earning, so you might as well say, yes, it's 0.1 per day. If tomorrow all 880,000 hotspots were earning, that would drop down to 0.7, 0.6 overnight. And then people would scream.
0.06.
Yeah, 0.07. Yeah, it would drop to that overnight, and people would scream again. But that's actually much better for the network because it means that everybody's participating. So it would be nice to see that, but it's very difficult to predict so far into the future. And a lot of people have jumped on thinking I can get an ROI in 3 weeks or 2 weeks. Those days have well and truly gone. And it's a long-term proposition, as we keep saying. It's up to people to build the network rather than just sit back and go, my hotspot's earning $7 a day or 70 cents a day. What's going on?
Yeah. Let's see.
Because no one's.
Oh, good. Go ahead, Neil.
Just want to say, no one's upset with the amount of tokens they're earning. They're upset with what their tokens are worth. At the end of the day, I wouldn't go out and earn 1 ETH right now if I set up a few GPUs.
Right.
But I don't need to earn 1 ETH. We've got to focus on what drives that value up, and that's usage.
Yeah. Yep. What about so? Are you guys seeing Murugan's Rajendran? I'm just gonna butcher these names until I figure out my how to get them right. Is it good to reduce the validator stacking to 5,000 or 2,000 HNTs so that we could have more validators? So I guess the question is, do we need more validators? Would be the first question. I don't think we do, but what do you guys think?
I think there's enough as long as they're working and they're maintained. I think we may be in a position where some people that own validators, I think Neil and I both know one that has unstaked, that perhaps weren't as tech savvy, that they saw it again as a way to invest their money. I think it really needs people that understand what they're doing and understand the responsibilities of running a validator, because it's not really like a hotspot. You've got more of a responsibility to keep it running. I think reducing the cost and increasing the number, I don't think that would work. I think it's good that it's set where it is, and obviously that's become much more affordable at the moment. But I think people that are looking to go into running a validator need to think very carefully about whether they've got the skill and expertise to keep it maintained and running properly to serve the network.
Yeah, and there's an interesting piece to it, is that just like anything else, is there's been a consolidation of kind of power and effort and work there. Is that initially a buddy and I split a validator, and we were doing it, all on our own, kind of running it on our own AWS, and then switching over to DigitalOcean. Then there were some other services like, oh, this is even faster. And then finally, it's like, dude, we're just going to put it on what was StakeJoy, what might now be BlockJoy. I forget the names. And I haven't done anything or touched anything on that thing. Like BlockJoy, StakeJoy takes care of all of that, which is fantastic. They take their percentage, but it's consolidating power. It's centralizing power. And it's like, that's always the danger with these things, that if you make it super complicated, the folks who understand the complications, then like it's a natural thing. They centralize power there. So I'm not sure there's a great answer, but that's been my experience as kind of a semi-normal user. Do either of you guys run a validator, or have you just said like, no, we're going to stake partially, or you're just saying, I'm not touching that thing?
No, I don't. I don't trust other people with my funds, so I don't use partial staking and validators. I don't agree with the lockup period. I understand why, but I just don't agree with it.
Huh?
Yeah,
I
think
thought
that
you would have staked, Neil. You would have gone for it just to see what's going on, but no, not buying it.
No, it's just you just don't know, and I understand why you would do it, but
Yep.
for the amount of effort that you have to put in for doing that, it was always better for me to focus on hotspots than validators. Considering how little validators get in proportion to how much they do, it's nothing.
Right.
And if you added more validators to that, they'd earn even less. So there's a point where it becomes unprofitable to run a validator.
It's difficult to know if you want to get out, when to get out, because again, the person that we know that had one, I think it was his stake was worth around $500,000. But there was a 3-month cooling off period, and by the time he was able to get rid of his HNT, it was down at $150,000. Still more than he staked for it, but it's a lot harder to predict what's going to happen. I did actually run some stats last week, and only 260 have unstaked since they started.
Really?
So there's
there's some belief in the network.
Yeah, absolutely. There's 500 that have changed hands. I guess yours may be one of those if you've transferred it to StakeJoy, and if they're running the wallet, then that may account for some of those. But there's 3,600 and something on the network currently, and there's been close to 4,000 staked, but only 260 have come out of the program. So yeah, there is some belief in the network.
Yeah, dig it. I'm seeing Eric's comment is super cool, and I think, Neil, you're starting to do something like this. Is they should have marketed the miners with sensor packages or a coupon for a free sensor that you could have offered your host upon signing. And Neil, they're starting to do that. Which company's doing that? They're including your track pack with their packages?
They haven't been announced yet.
Oh, it hasn't been announced yet. Okay, top secret. Sorry about that.
They will be, but no, I totally agree. I think Helium tabs was a bit before its time. I think if Helium had focused on something like air quality or a door sensor and it came with a hotspot, that would have been the best way to do it. Tabs was ahead of its time to try and explain what the network was for, because the network wasn't big enough. Right. So if they'd have done a fixed place sensor, obviously where you've got the hotspot in the house, it's much easier to make sure that sensor's always got coverage. So it would have been looking much more appealing. But I 100% agree. Every hotspot manufacturer should sell a hotspot with a sensor.
Yeah. The data from a door sensor is a lot easier to visualize as well than a mapper or a tracker. You basically get on or off, and it's much easier to do than place a pin on a map. I think, as Neil's found out. When doing
exactly.
Well, let's brainstorm a little bit. Like, let's say we're all manufacturers and we're selling hotspots. What sensor would you include with a hotspot that would be ultra easy for anyone to use, and that would also be useful enough that they take the time to install it? Because I'm not sure a door sensor. Air quality. Oh yeah,
indoor
air quality.
Any day of the week. Because what happens as well is that can be a whole kind of Weather XM thing where eventually you get funded for your data. Once you have global data, you could actually say, well, pollution is on these levels, not what's being reported. Yep. And we'd have a decentralized way of, gathering that data that can't be spoofed. So those big ideas would make so much difference to the world, and that's something we could be doing.
Planet Watch tried to do that, but I basically unplugged my. I did the great unplug on Planet Watch because it was such a pain in the ass to keep this little thing, which was, I don't know what it's called, an Atmos something or other, and I had to have a separate Android phone, and it was just a, yeah, I just stopped doing it. But it would have been super cool to have something where it's like, yeah, just put this outside, like, staple this to your house or whatever, and do outdoor recording.
Exactly. Exactly, and it's so easy to do. And obviously, Joey's got his IKEA projects where
That's right.
he's taken a 18 in the UK. It's £18 for that air quality sensor, and then you just buy a little cube cell board, which is another £10, and you've got a home air quality sensor for under £20. None of this, £500 for a special minor air quality business.
Yep.
It's just cheap DIY, and it's something we could do and build together, and eventually take it into that situation where it's a Weather XM type thing where we have a DAO for it, but it would just take some focusing and, and then convince the manufacturers to send out something like that,
Yeah.
something we could do.
Ah, it's super cool. I dig it.
So
Yeah.
one of the things that I've got recently started working again as well, which is a bit bizarre, is my remote resetters.
Oh, that's right. You were working
so
on that a while ago.
Yeah, so I've got again. It's like one of the little cube cell boards, and through the console, I can send a command to it, and it will basically flip a relay and power cycle my hotspot. So the one that I've got in a field, I don't have to go out to it to reset, and it does it obviously does it over the Helium network. It wasn't working for maybe 3 or 4 weeks, and when they did the chain var the other day, I don't know if it was coincidence or whether console's been updated, but all of a sudden my downlink devices started working again. The uplink ones were fine, but the downlink where I'm sending a command to the board started working again. It's not a very interesting use case unless you've got an off grid, but
Yep.
It depends on the location of your hotspot. If it's in your attic or up on your roof, and you don't want to be climbing up there all the time to power cycle it.
Yeah.
It's
And Joey
something quick and easy.
put plans for his air quality thing somewhere on the interwebs. We'll have to see if we can find that and drop it in the description here. Maybe 619 if you're really good with links. If you can drop it in the chat. But that might be the coolest, like the single coolest thing that we could do is just like a public service announcement to say, hey, start using the air quality sensor to monitor air quality in your house. I mean, I've seen just with Weather XM, as silly as this sounds in San Diego, where we don't really have hot or cold weather. Having the weather up on the roof and then having a thermometer in the house and saying, okay, because we live in basically a desert, it's hot during the day, cool at night, and we use a whole house fan to cool the house down. We don't have AC. And just knowing when it's cool enough outside, like, oh yeah, now's the time to switch that on. It probably doesn't make a huge difference because within 30 minutes to an hour, I can tell the difference just feeling it on my skin. But I think like that's the beginning of the kind of projects that we're going to see with Helium, where you can make your own house or your own property more comfortable for relatively cheap, is something like that. And the same thing with air quality is like, oh, you put a little screen up on your by your front door that says, hey, air quality outside is bad or good today, and you figure you're going to close your windows or open your windows.
Yeah, you can even drive the screen over the network as well. So
right.
you can, because it's only small data packets. So one of the other things that I talked with Neil about quite a long time ago, he said it's already been done, is being able to send like text messages between two cube-cell boards, and it's like having a mobile phone in an area that may not be covered. So you can send messages or emergency messages or anything like that. So it's kind of cool. Or I could be sitting here and I could send a message to a screen that was behind you, Nick, that told you to stop cursing again.
Yeah. Well, I got my little note right here, so it doesn't always work, but it's there. That's the low tech version. But that's super cool. Oh, Joey just dropped the link. Let me see if I can take his cube cell thing and put it in the chat. Stand by. All right, so that's
they're so cheap on IKEA, and I mean obviously it does. You do need to do a tiny bit of soldering, but just the fact that you can have a sensor for that cheap that does everything you need it to, it's just unbelievable. It costs you more to normally buy the sensor that's in that thing.
Yep.
Yeah, it's strange as well that they've got space on the board to break out from as well. Because a lot of times they're all proprietary and there's nowhere to break out from, but to have it so simple to do, it doesn't make any sense not to do it, really.
Cool.
Maybe we should get onto IKEA to just add the cube cell to it and launch a product
Yeah.
for us. That's possible.
That's the thing, is there's so many opportunities right now. If like for anyone who's like, oh, I'm out of work, or I'm looking for something new, and I get these kind of DMs every so often on my Twitter, like, hey, are you hiring? I saw whatever it was. It's like, man, you could build your own business that is way bigger than anything I'll build with Gristle King, just by connecting with some of these companies. And you can expect a lot of people to say no, but at the same time, you basically have this network that, as much as we want everyone to know about it, nobody really knows about it. And so you've got this advantage, is that there's a global network that you can use. No one needs to know that you're using it. You could just say, hey, you should put these air quality things in with every whatever, or this cube cell in with every air quality piece, and I'll handle the backhaul to the internet. I mean, it's just for kind of people who are willing to either be tech savvy themselves or to find someone tech savvy to work with. There are giant opportunities out there.
Giant, and you're the first one that comes to people's mind when they go to spread it. That's what we were trying to do with TrackPack, launch something. We were fed up for waiting for other companies to do what they were said they were going to do, and just provide a global service that's just something that people could just pick up and go with straight away, and make their money, spread to their neighbors, make their profit on it. And
Yep.
we just need more of that. And sometimes, I picked a particularly hard industry, but like Dave said, with a door sensor or air quality or any of those things, the what you need to create is so little. It's so easy to do. You can do it so quickly and carve out this huge market because you're first doing it.
Yeah.
I don't think
people counter on the outside of the PT and in the door, just so he can, a paleo treat, so he can see how many people are walking in versus walking by. Because I've talked about that enough times. It's like, I should just do it and show people how to do it, and then you can.
Yeah, for sure.
Yourself. Yeah.
And just to Matt's comment there, he said you need capital to do it, and that's the foundation have got grants for that kind of thing. So if you can do a proof of concept, show it working, you can get a grant to expand that use case. They're desperate to hand them out, aren't they? So
yeah. I think all of us have gotten grants. So if the three of us can get them, then it's like we're not the dumbest people on the planet, but it does mean that if you can present a persuasive case for them to fund whatever it is you're doing, they're psyched on it.
Oh, right, so absolutely.
I think that's a piece. And then, Matt, the other thing to think about is working with other people. Is reach out to other folks who you see are doing something, and say, hey, I'd like to do this. Like, here's what I'm good at. What are you good at? Like, let's see if we can work together, because that is extending that ethos of decentralization, is that you can just run a gig with someone for a while. You don't have to start up a giant company and do incorporating the rest of it. Is that you can say, like, hey, let's just work together on this project, see if we can get it, do it under Helium grant. If it does work, then we can figure out all the rest of that stuff. I mean, that's more or less exactly what I'm doing with this blockchain and meat space course. Is I reached out to another guy and said, hey, I like the way you work. Do you want to help me with this? He's good at some other geeky stuff that I'm not good at. And then we'll see where it goes. So it's pretty cool.
Exactly. And a lot of the time it's like, Dave with this grant, or me and my business, there's people that will help you get these solutions out there. You don't have to know everything.
Yep.
People are so willing to help in this community. If you've got a great idea, just post about it on the Discord, get involved, and you'll find people that bend over backwards to try and get that information for you. Like Jazz is one of my favorite people on the sensor channel. If you've got a sensor that doesn't have a decoder for it, he'll just write one for you. Like, he's done that so many times. But like, for me to sit down and look at that, I would look and go, what the, Or if you need it copying over to DataCake so it works with DataCake, he would know exactly what to do. And does
I might have to hit him
charge.
up on the people counter thing, because we're having problems with that. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and there's people there for everything kind of like that. So join the Discord and get involved, really.
Yeah. And I mean, we're seeing it happen right here on YouTube. Is that hacking this and that? Is like, hey, hit me up and I'll help you out with it. I saw something from Ilko that I think Neil, you can answer. Is it possible to get information about all the gateways that receive the signal from the end device so that I can triangulate the signal?
You can. You need to set up at least like 3 or 4 gateways in an area, and then look at the data transfer. You can do like a GPS and look at how they're received and how everyone else receives it. It's difficult, but
and then you also need, because he's also saying my tests recently show only one hotspot in console. I think you just have to set multiple what is it, multiple packets?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, add a profile to the device, and there's one called for multiple packets, and you can just turn all packets on.
Yep. Yep. So it's doable for sure. Yeah, only one is always displayed. So it just looks like I'm reading Ilko's comments. It looks like you just got to fiddle with console a little bit and just look for that multiple packets thing. So.
Yeah, I think that it's in the Helium guide. If you get really stuck, if you look at the console guide, it tells you in there how to do it. I know because I've turned it on for my trackers.
Yeah, it's always. I mean, it's one of those things where I always feel like a baller, be like, oh yeah, I'll buy from everything. And it's like, yeah, dude, you just spent like an extra 4 cents. Don't think you're like some cocaine kid.
Exactly.
Not really spending a lot of money. So, pretty funny.
It felt like that when we bought packets the other day. We bought 10 million DC, which is only like 100 quid. So
yeah,
but it just felt great. Like 10 million, I'm going to burn those so quick. But at the end of the day, it's not the worst, the biggest amount of data usage ever.
Yeah. And then Travis just came out with the Glamos thing for Ilko. Glamos is a $300 device. I think I gave mine to Dirk as well, or lent it to him. But yeah, there are devices out there that will help you figure out what the coverage is in a certain area. So, and you can build those. You can build the mapper piece and figure that out. Philippe Velikov. It looks like we're having a lot of non-U.S. people. Maybe all the U.S. people today are celebrating Independence Day.
Getting ready to party.
Yeah, not me, dude. So I meant to tell you guys. I did a YouTube live the other day when, let's see, RF Shop was in town. David DeHaye came in through Australia. He'd had this like giant piece of news to unveil. We were going to do it then, and then he decided it was some antenna thing. He was going to change it, and then he gave me this really cool little thing that is yet to be unveiled. But I'm super psyched on it. But while I was there, serendipitously, the 5G box came into the shop, and so we unboxed it. Neil, I think you're on there, and you're asking me some question that I didn't get, and I was like, man, I don't know where to put this thing. Like the problem is, I've got like a lot of people. I've got a 5G miner, and in this case, it's lucky for me because Keenan bought it. And he's like, hey, wherever you find a place to put this, put it in. And whatever it happens, like, great, let's just make this a thing for Helium to help people understand how to do a 5G miner. And I was like, okay, at least I'm in a country where I can do that, but I don't have a spot. And Keenan's like, yep, that's fine. And then I was walking with my wife last night with Lee. She's like, well, why don't you put it down at Nicole's place? And it hit me because I used to have a hotspot down there. There's a place downtown that overlooks this plaza. It's right across the street from a coffee shop. The plaza is like a local university. It's like, oh, that's a perfect place for a 5G unit. So when we get off the call today, I'm going to drive down to Barrio Logan, which is a little neighborhood in San Diego, and put this 5G unit in. But it's pretty cool to see.
Nice.
Once you find a spot, like then it's just straight problem solving. Finding the spot is the really hard part.
Yeah. Always has been though, hasn't it? Spots are the key to this thing. Like I'm getting involved in 5G, so we're getting involved in 5G. So we're going to have placements in the States, so I could be part of the community and enjoy it. But yeah,
that's awesome.
It's going to be fun. It's the birth of another network,
Yeah.
I think we've got some really good times coming ahead. Like I think the worry about POC at the moment is purely, token basis that people see these 0.03s come through.
Yep.
When 5G goes live on the new coins and we're getting full numbers again, I really do think it's going to make a difference to people because you can see those coins building up at a much faster pace and you can understand that they will be worth more in the future. Not that you're not getting much at all every day, Seeing some whole numbers roll through. I think and that's all coming up over this summer, 5G launches. From memory, multi coin has been updated on validators, so that's gone out already. So it's pretty much ready to rock. From what I understand.
Are you saying it's in the can? Is it in the can, Neil?
It's in the can. It's in the can.
Let's see.
It's soon. It's real soon, though, isn't it?
Yeah, no, there's all kinds of exciting stuff coming out. We're just kind of in the quote boring time right now, while all of this stuff is basically it's like a mushroom, like it's growing underground. The filaments are all going out, and everyone's like, "What's happening? Nothing's happening. I don't see anything." And then it's going to rain, and there's going to be 10,000 mushrooms popping up, and it's like, "Oh, that was what was happening." Paul Wilmot is a Glamos worth
right type.
What's that, Dave?
I just hope they're the right type of mushrooms.
Yeah, I mean, I used to have some mushrooms in my desk right here, but I think I've had them all. Okay, is a Glamos worth getting for placement on my miner? Paul, it's only worth getting if you're interested about coverage in the network and maybe coverage in a place where you're going to put your hotspot. It's a super cool device. I think they're fun if you're kind of on the geeky side and you want to test stuff. But I wouldn't get it just to have one and just to be, testing stuff if you don't care about building out the network specifically. So you see Travis like uses his all the time. I have mine, and I kind of hand it out wherever someone wants to use it to test it. So if you're in San Diego, when Dirk's done with it, you're welcome to borrow mine. But I don't think it's something that every hotspot owner should have. And then shout out to Lone Star Tracking, who had the device that helped me find my paraglider bag the other day in Salt Lake City. So those guys are on the chat, and that's another thing that you can use. It's just like Neil's service, Lone Star. I think it's LoneStarTracking.com, and you buy an Oyster or any of the units they've got, and they make it super easy to track. So we're seeing kind of another thing using Helium.
It's great seeing all these new companies pop up. Honestly, there's so much coming, and there's so much in the works that we're seeing from people. Like usage is going to shoot up before we know it. It's just takes a while to get it going, and a lot of people knew from the start that LoRa and IoT is a new thing. There's no existing sensors. They had to be made and developed, and often the business models changed to make it viable. Yep. Before this IoT world was priced in the region of, we're only dealing with businesses. The businesses are providing the coverage.
Yep.
So, instead of devices being worth 30 quid, 40 quid, 50 quid, they're 500, 600, and they only make them in batches of 100 at a time, things like that. So it's going to take a while for this all to grow, 100%. We're getting there now.
But having said that, you can prototype sensors pretty easily. And if you're into that sort of thing, you can then make those prototypes into a custom PCB. I think, Nick, you've received some custom PCBs that somebody had made. So
yep.
once you've got a sensor up and working, you can send off to China your designs, and a bunch of circuit boards will come back, and you can even have them, if you're not handy with a soldering iron, you can even have them fully populated, and you can create a small bespoke sensor for not a lot of money, and you can start a business from there very easily.
Yeah, I think the full weather station thing with everything was probably and I only bought 5 of the boards at a time, was maybe $13 per board. So it's just for this to be professionally made and then shipped out to me, it's not the cheapest. It's not the way to run a big business, but man, that's a super cool thing as you think about air quality or the rest of it. So, Philippe,
I mean, I love my Glamos. But just to say that unless you're doing a lot of work in the field, I wouldn't recommend one. I'd much prefer people to go get a TT Go T-Beam for $20 off of Amazon.
Yep.
And learn about what goes into these small bore sensors and make them. That's a much better way of doing it.
That's exactly the discussion we had 12 months ago, Neil, and off I went and bought one.
Yeah. I've seen a couple folks come in. We must have had someone posted a link, because I'm seeing a bunch of new people come in. Pro Stupid, can you explain? No, Philippe Velikov had asked about the Ledger Nano to store HNT. You can do it, but you need Geeky 24 wallet something or other, if I remember right. So yes, but, and then Pro Stupid, can you explain better which spots make more HNT now? It'll be the same as before. If you Google Rough Guide to Helium and Gristle King, you'll find an article that was written just for you. It is just as true now as it was when I wrote it, a year ago. And then new hex targeting from Laz Martinez. Is there any hope for us city folks? I don't think, Laz, I don't think you're right that the devs are implementing on Fridays. You might be, but I don't think so. And I'd be curious about how big the fleet is and having killed your fleet, and whether that's more of a function of just overpopulation in the cities in general or specific to this hex targeting. Dave, you got anything on top of that? Are you seeing that?
No, I think if you're in an overpopulated area and there's only 14 witnesses per beacon, if there's thousands of hotspots that are in witnessing region of those beacons, then sure, you're not going to get witnesses so often. It just is an indication that there is overpopulation. I think if you look at the number of hotspots that are beaconing compared to those that are witnessing, although only 160,000 hotspots are beaconing every day, 460,000 are witnessing. So that's an indication of how densely populated the network is. that nearly all of the hotspots that would witness over the course of 3 or 4 days are witnessing in one day with so few beacons. So I think it should be encouragement for people to look at where they are, look at how densely populated it is, and perhaps think about moving their hotspots into better locations.
Yeah, that provide coverage. Most of mine are edge installs of bad Hex 5 that had hundreds of witnesses before. Yeah, I don't know, Laz. I'm not sure what the answer is. I mean, I think with any of these projects, whether it's Helium or any of these blockchain and mean space projects, is you always look at what value is your unit providing, and whether you're providing radio coverage or weather coverage or air quality coverage or whatever, that's the first way that I look at thinking about doing a deployment. And if you're in a place where the value that your coverage is providing is low because there's lots of other units, or because there's no need for that data, or whatever, it's just harder to earn off of that. I mean, I'm finding that my high earning spots continue to be high earning no matter what, because they're continuing to provide value, right? They're up on mountaintops, they're providing incredible coverage. Like I've never seen those things not do well where I didn't understand why they weren't doing well. You know, one time they got listed on the deny list accidentally, and so they didn't do well then. But other than that, like high value areas do well. Low value areas can do up or can do well or do not well, and that can be confusing because you're getting noise instead of signal. So, man, the comments are coming in thick and fast. Where were you guys 45 minutes ago when we started?
I know, right?
Yeah. And then Laz, would Hex 6 or 7 be better than Hex 5? Man, I'm not sure I understand that question, and I'm actually not sure you understand the Hex thing. I don't want to insult you if you do, but might be worth reviewing that. Let's see. I'm checking out the notes, and then you guys, I know we're going to pop off here because we're a minute over. Thunder Road. We need a company that repairs miners like those crap nevers I have. Well, you can send him to AP, and he'll make sure that they work for him. And I wonder if there's is there anyone that has a repair manual for hotspots that you guys know of? Like it's a website, or how to repair a never, how to repair a sense cap, how to repair XYZ.
Not really.
Okay.
Maybe
Business opportunity.
Exactly. You know, there's some great videos for someone to do. Here's a teardown of a Bobcat and how you repair it and what bits can go wrong. Things like that. That'd be great.
Yeah. Oh, using Hex 6 instead of Hex 5 in the algorithm. Okay, I'm seeing Laz's comment now. I don't know.
We'd have to have simulations to run through that kind of data to see if it would make a massive difference.
Yeah.
He's saying rather than pick the Hex 5s, pick 6s instead.
No, I'm getting it. Yeah.
Yeah. We need. The problem is with stuff like this, it's yes, it could be good, but until you run data on large samples of it to see what would actually happen, it's pointless to do it. It's there's a big argument about Res 5 should just be not counted, as in, for transmit scales, and
right.
Res's 10 and 11 should be increased, so they get much more of a penalty score, and that means that areas just outside of on the edges of Res 5s will do better, and it would mean that coverage spreads out more evenly. It doesn't affect people as bad, but until you actually do a study on that data and present a thing for it, you just have to assume that it's probably going to be worse.
Yeah,
you have to have that data.
It'll be good for some and bad for others. Like all these changes, it will even out. It's got to even out because there's only a certain amount of HNT available. So just by changing the parameters, all you're going to do is upset somebody else for your benefit. I think, as you say, it would need a large-scale study, and I think we're probably in a position to be able to do it now because there's so many hotspots. I think
if there was someone who had gotten a grant to study all the numbers that come out of Helium.
But looking at it when it was introduced, 12 months ago, when there weren't huge populated areas of hotspots, I think they've done a reasonable job at it. But yeah, could they do better? Could it be better? Yes, but it needs somebody from the community to pick it up and run with it. As we've said, it can't all be done by a centralized entity. So
I mean, Hit 1517 wasn't done by Helium. It was done by
absolutely, yeah.
Para One.
Yeah, Para One. Andrew, who wrote this thing that completely changed the network, and then he's like, I'm gonna go take a job doing some badass thing and somewhere else. And I haven't seen him much since, but yeah, one person changed the network, and one person can change the network again. So it's just all about contributing. Eric, any idea what it costs in USD to run one of the air quality sensors for a year? Depends on how often it's firing stuff out. But I think, when I looked when I was doing my people counters and they were firing every minute, I forget what it was. It was like $5 a month for it to be shooting out information every minute. Maybe it was something
No,
like it's
$5
really
a year.
Yeah.
30 seconds. If you said the device checked in every 30 seconds over a whole year, it's about $10 in data for the whole
depending
year.
on how much it's sending, right? Because you can send different amounts. Or
Yeah, that would be every 30 seconds and 11 bytes or whatever what you need. But yeah, it's less than a tenner for the $10 for the whole year. Absolutely unbelievable. It's so cheap. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. And then shout out to Joe P. I see Network Bits on here. We'll have to have you back on sometime. I haven't seen any videos from you recently, but that's because I haven't been watching YouTube as much as maybe. Well, it just got to be like too much. I was like, I'm gonna go fly and do something else cool. So I'm betting you're
enjoying the flight.
Yeah. I have been
enjoying the videos. Yeah.
Cool. Oh, good. Yeah, because dude, I almost I got my little GoPro right here, and I've been putting it in my pocket because I'm like, I'm going to share these with more people because it's really beautiful flying in that place. But when I'm holding the YouTube, you're letting go of the brake handles, or when I'm holding the camera.
I did notice that you only had a hand on one handle. I was like,
it's pretty safe, but it's also a thing where you're just like, I got to be careful because if there's a collapse, you got to decide what you're going to handle, like a good video or a problem aircraft. You got to prioritize things. So, all right, guys, we're 6 minutes over. I know that I try and keep these to an hour, but I'm not doing a great job today. Thanks to everyone for coming. Eric, we'll see you tomorrow on the Gristle Crew call. And then you guys could know that if you want to follow Dave's stuff, it's heliumanalytics.io. And Neil's is TrackPack with just a C, no K, and pack.io as well, right, Neil? And all that stuff should be down in the description. Ripping. Thanks, fellas. I think we're gonna cut this thing.
Okay.
Have fun. Lights.
Happy